That's all right. I'll talk to myself. I was just thinking about reading these symptoms for insulin resistance because nobody's I don't know. I was just I'm trying to gain muscle, and I was worried about insulin because insulin helps you build muscle. Well, in a way, because it like does has all these multiple functions in your body, and if you have a lot of it, then it'll build a lot of muscle. And if you don't, then you won't. So you can like not have enough carbs and carbohydrates in your body, and you won't build muscle even though you got protein. So that's why like you see all these bodybuilders consuming a shit ton of carbs. But I was also thinking about my pancreas. I'm thinking symptoms of insulin resistance. It's like, wait a second. And why do I worry about that? Well, I was back to my original thing when I was talking about before about my usage of certain substances. One time, and this was like about 3 or 4 years ago. I guess 4 years ago almost. I was at the time using it a lot. I mean, like, would put anybody's pancreas to the test because I was drinking a minimum of 20 drinks a day. That was the minimum. Um, Plus, I was minimally doing about, I think, about 160, 50 or 60 was my level for methadone at the time. Um, I'm not finished. And I was also smoking crack on a daily basis. And I'm not finished. And at night, I was using heroin. So, yeah, that's a lot to and I actually had tried meth, a few times around that time too. So it's a lot to put your body through. And some of the times I would drink like 30 drinks a day or more. So it's like eventually that went on for a while, and then eventually I went, I started getting pain in my back, and I went to the hospital. And they said I had pancreatitis, and I was like, oh shit, yeah. My pancreas was like, nope, nope, gotta stop freaking abusing alcohol, heroin, crack, and while you're on methadone. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, that was not good. So that's why I'm reading about symptoms of insulin resistance. But I don't believe I have that because in order to have symptoms of insulin resistance, you have to like um, pee a lot, which I would always done that anyway. So tingling and things like that, which I have that, but I've always had that anyway, and it's probably from I've had carpal tunnel for like 20 years, so it's not from that either. So, but yeah, so I don't think I have any problems. My pancreatitis went away. It was just like it wasn't chronic. It was like an acute case of pancreatitis, and it was from you know my drug use, which at the time was like completely out of control. I mean, they kept, and eventually they found out that I was like, that I was drinking while, on methadone, which they kept, testing you for alcohol because they don't want you to drink and do meth because they're afraid you're going to die, so. And then eventually they started like um, testing me. And I could get into this. Now, this is a really crazy thing that you could get into and that I could tell you about. And it's in New York. The system in New York is insanely abused. I mean, like batshit crazy. I mean, like to the level like you have no idea. Where the state money is abused. Um, I don't know if you ever heard of like methadone, which is what I was on. Well, they have these clinics, and people who live in rural areas like I lived were being cabbed to these clinics, methadone clinics. And well, it's a big scam. The cab companies, overcharging the state. So like, there's all these kickbacks for the people riding in the cabs, for the cab companies, for the clinics. So it turns into this whole big thing, So like, and I had heard about this, and I was like, oh Jesus. So people were like riding. They would ride, but it was far. You would have to ride in a cab every day, usually 40 to 50 miles one way, every day, 6 days a week. Um, that people were getting like anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a week to do this. So you see, and then you see where the money goes when they're doing this. The money was going for drugs. So it's like, in fact, it got so crazy, and this is in upstate New York, that one of the clinics, these methadone clinics, was right next door to a crack store, basically, because there was a couple of store that had opened up, and all they were doing was selling drugs to people who were going into these methadone clinics, because they'd get their money from the cab companies. They would come out of the methadone clinic. They'd go in this other store, get their crack, or whatever else they're looking for, meth maybe, and then go out and get in their cab and go home and do their drugs. It's like one-stop shopping, you know. So yeah, that's pretty crazy. And I don't know if it's still going on, but it was going on a few years ago when I left New York. Um, I mean, I never myself was never really got into it because I stopped using, I had to stop using because, like I had pancreatitis, so it was like I had to stop drinking. And yeah, and I still couldn't stop smoking. I was like, not cigarette. I'm not talking about cigarettes. Um, and it got so bad that eventually, the place I was going to I eventually got on Suboxone, and the place I was going to for the Suboxone was like, they were going to cut me off, and eventually I had to stop myself from smoking, and got into the sad story of my, you know, the dog that had at the time dying, and it wasn't my fault, but it was somebody. Let's just say there was fault of the drugs, and not, not me directly, but I mean, but so, I don't know. I don't want to name names because I don't want to put yelled at people, but so it just made me think, associate with that, and that was the end of the whole thing, you know. This poor little dog who I took care of this dog for like 7 months, and he had encephalitis of the brain, and otherwise he probably would have been dead. And if we, didn't take care of him, but somebody had been using around him, and they didn't mean to, but he fell, and that was we had to take him to the vet, and he just he died anyways. It was like and I'm a heartless bastard. You know what I'm saying? But it made me fucking I was very upset about it. And like you said, I've been known to be pretty heartless at times. So yeah. This little dog would have made you. He actually has a picture. There's a video on YouTube that I put up of. So even the most heartless would weep with this dog. But anyway, that's what made me stop smoking, and somebody else I know, so, because it was that they're just so crazy. You know, um, it's probably a good thing because I mean I'd be because you know the problem with something like cocaine is once you get in the habit of using it on a regular basis, like a daily basis, it's just like alcohol. You know, it sets off a switch in your mind that makes you think that you have to have it. It's like smoking. I smoked for 37 years, and I was convinced that I needed a cigarette. So I never went without one. And that went from the time I was, I don't know, 9 to 10 years old until I was like in my mid 40s. And then I, decided I had to try to quit. And I kept trying and trying and trying. Something clicked in my brain. It told me, you know what? I just don't, all I need to do is just throw the cigarettes away. And boy, that worked. I never smoked again. So go figure. And that was 7 years ago. But I could not make the connection with the alcohol, with the heroin, with the crack, the same way as I did with the cigarettes. Go figure. Uh, I did eventually, but at the time I couldn't. But one by one, I sure shit did. Um, you know, it was first was the heroin, which went from heroin to methadone, and then from methadone back to heroin, and then from heroin to Suboxone, and then from that, the cocaine. I just was like I said, the dog, you know, and alcohol followed that. Once I stopped using the cocaine, I was done with it. I think that was the only reason I drank, was because of the cocaine. You know, it's just like, I had to have it. If I do coke, I have to have alcohol. That's just the way my brain works. Cocaine. As soon as I had stopped, with cocaine, I was like, nah, I don't want to drink it. In fact, I even tried to drink a couple of months later. I was like, yeah. It's like, it's some same way with a cigarette. Or something, like you try to give me a cigarette, I'd be like, nah. In fact, I don't think I would do anything ever again, but which is a good thing. I mean, it's a good place to be, but it's not an easy place to get there if if you've been in that situation. I mean, I know people that to this day that that did get high with it. They're still trapped in that situation where they're just using it on a daily basis and they can't see any way out of it. And it's common for everybody. I mean, like if you can't see you past that daily grind of, oh, I need, today, I need today. And, it's hard to see out of it. And the person I'm talking about it's alcohol, man. And that's one of the worst too, because, you know, I've been an alcoholic and I'm waking up, at like 8 o'clock in the morning and thinking, is the store open? And that's the way alcoholics think, First thing they do, eyes open up, it's like, do I have something to drink? And you look and you think, you're like, no. And you think, is the store open? Do I have money? In fact, you don't even think you have money. You think, is the store open? The money you would get if you didn't have it, but you want to make sure that store is open, because if it isn't, you're really screwed, because where are you going to get it? Like in New York, there were certain times the store might be closed, so, and that's really, some spooky stuff, you know, even when you are drinking, because you're doing this, like engaging in this behavior, and your mind is working this way, and yet you're indulging it, and you're like, but you're still kind of spooked by it because it's so spooky. I mean, people think like this, they think, oh, is that store open? I gotta get to the store, and how am I gonna get there? And you feel like you wake up and you feel like death, like like you won't even get out of the bed, but yet you're gonna drag yourself out of that bed and get to that store if you don't have a drink next to you when you wake up, you know. And that's exactly how alcoholics function, you know. And I learned that from an early age. I hung out with an alcoholic when I was like 17 for like about a week or two, and he was a hardcore alcoholic. I mean, this guy, he put that the stuff you use in the can to light like food. I forget what they call it now. The pink stuff. He put that in a sock one time and squeezed out and drank it. Yeah. So he passed out for a couple of days after that. But that's an alcoholic, I'm sure he's gone now. That was many years ago. But hang out with somebody like that who drinks, you'll get an idea what alcoholics are like, early. That's why I didn't drink most of my adult life. Anyway, like I said, the only reason I think I drank was because of cocaine, which is, another thing I would never touch. That's a mind-altering drug, cocaine. They never really talk about that, but it makes you indulge in like risque behavior. Speeds up your mind so much that you do things you normally wouldn't do. Yeah, especially when you drink. You know, like like I'm a pretty like mellow guy. I don't go out. I mean, I go out, but I don't like go out like in the middle of the night and do crazy shit. Except when I drink and do coke. And it's like, yeah, middle of the night, hell yeah, let's go drive freaking, down to, I don't know, 70 miles away, in the middle of the night, just to, and that would happen all the time. People would knock on the door, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I'd be like, okay, let's go. Click, yeah, you know, my wife wake up, she'd be like, I'd be back at like 8 o'clock in the morning. She'd be like, where'd you go? You've been gone all night. And I'd be like, oh, yeah, I had to go get some. Yeah. Yeah, Coke is pretty crazy for me. I don't know. Of course, I don't think it must be crazy for everybody, I would say. I don't know. It's just, I've seen people, heroin addicts, are even crazier though. I mean, and that's one thing I never could say I really got into. I mean, I did a lot of dope, but it was always like snorting it. I never shot dope. And people who shoot dope, man, whoo, it's like they bounce off the walls, man. It's like a basketball thing, like they're bouncing. I mean, they literally bounce room, bounce around the room. And it's not just one person. I mean, I've known multiple people that would act like this, especially men, but some women too. But I was just thinking about that because I still use needles now for testosterone, and I think about all the dirty needle news I used to see. Heroin addicts, they don't care, man. They'll pick up a needle off the floor and freaking you know, as long as it's dope in it, they don't care. You I've known people who got Hep 1 just from being around heroin addicts. Not me, thankfully, but which is amazing. I was like, for all the shit I was around, I got tested for Hep 1 and all that for Hep 1, hepatitis A and A, B, and C, and didn't have any of it. But other people who were in a similar situation like us did get it, just from being around people who use heroin, intravenously. I never, got it. I was surprised. Having shared bodily fluids with said people, so it's like, yeah, crazy when you think about it. Maybe I have a good immune system. I don't know. I never got hepatitis, but yeah, it's crazy. There was a guy, and I think I mentioned this on in a posting. There was this guy. I'm not making this shit up. There was a guy who had a big wound on his arm, and I seen him one time because he was at this party, like he went over to his trap house to get dope a couple of times, and he had this big gaping wound, and he would not go to the doctor. And when he was shooting up, he was shooting into the open wound because instead of like just looking for a vein, he was just I'll just stick it into this open. Well, it didn't work out too well for him because yeah, after doing that for a couple of weeks, he died. He got blood poisoning. So yeah, don't shoot into an open wound. That's not a good idea. I don't know why he thought it was, but apparently he did. That's pretty bad shit, crazy, yeah, I think, like you said, yeah, not, yeah. It's like, But again, going back to heroin addicts, don't care. They don't. I don't know. Maybe it's the dope. I mean, I don't know. I was on dope, but I didn't do anything that crazy, and nobody could talk me into sticking a needle in my arm either. And they tried. I know other people that said they never do it, and sure as shit, they were in the bathroom like somebody was shooting them up. And it's like, oh yeah, you were shooting them. Yeah, well, I had to figure I'd try it, and it's like, yeah, you have fun with that one. But on me, I was like, nah, I'm good. Yeah, but I think I mentioned though, like that, I fell asleep one time though. I got so high on dope on my knees. Yeah, that was no fun. That's about as fucked up as I ever gotten on dope. I was so high that I just fell asleep on my knees. Woke up hours later. Wouldn't recommend it. But the temptation with the needle never came. So yeah, I seen too many people either they OD, too many people OD, or too many people do crazy things. Plus the constant chase. It was like it's bad enough, that I was on methadone and I was doing heroin, and I had been using painkillers for years, and then it was like, to see all this and then think, let's amp it up even more. I was like, no, I'm good. Yeah, I think I'm at a level like, I'm okay. I don't want to go any further. So, although that may be the reason I got pancreatitis, though, is because I did snort dope because it had to go through my liver and my kidneys rather than if I shot it up, which would go straight into my bloodstream. So it would bypass the pancreas and all that. But I'd probably be more likely to be dead because I know a lot of people that just, I know several people that I was hanging out with, here today and, oh shit, tomorrow, sorry. Oh, yeah, Jim, oh, he's gone. Yeah, oh, okay. That happened a lot, especially when all that fentanyl started coming across in like 21, 22. Yeah. So, not fun. Yeah. So that's why I would say that's a huge reason why I moved. How many states? About 8 states away from where I was living in New York. Just to get away. I wouldn't want to be around that shit anymore. I wouldn't want to take the chance of meeting somebody again that I like knew. Not that like any personal embarrassment or anything like that. Nothing like that. What I'm saying is like just the chance. I'm not the type of person that I would engage in that, but My spouse would. My spouse would be like, meet somebody to just smoke with and be like, oh yeah, next thing she'd be smoking up again. So it's like I had to get her away from it. So and it certainly makes it easier for me. So and doesn't hurt that the weather down here is a lot warmer. Down south than it is up there. And I haven't met anybody who uses drugs down here. I'm sure there are people, but I'm not looking for them. So it works. I haven't met them, but yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It's back. So that's why I was looking up the symptoms of insulin resistance because I was thinking about pancreatitis and what it had done to my pancreas and all the abuse I put through my pancreas, smoking. Patrick Swayze, you know, died from pancreatic cancer, and he was a drinker and a smoker. Michael Landon, big drinker and smoker, pancreatic cancer. You know, had me thinking. I was thinking, yeah, I don't want to go there. Yeah. I don't know. Patrick Swayze, I don't know how big of a drinker he was. I know he was a chain smoker, though. He smoked like 4 or 5 packs a day of cigarettes. So did Michael Landon. But Michael Landon was a bad drinker. They said he used to he'd be like, they said he'd pour like booze in his cups, in his coffee cups on the set and shit, up like Little House in the Prairie. What's her name? Melissa Gilbert said he smelled like booze all the time, you know? So yeah, he was pretty bad. So that's why like alcoholics usually have pancreas problems. So that's why I'm thinking about it. But yeah, it was too bad about the Sways and Michael Landon, both good actors. Yeah. But gotta go somehow. So yeah, shit. Yeah. So yeah, I don't do anything now. I am on Suboxone, at the moment. Although I started off on Suboxone, I was doing so much dope that you know, that I wound up like, in a rehab, for like a week, and man, I was laying in the hospital bed. I couldn't move for like 3 days. That was like, I figured I could go through it. After like fourth day, I was able to get up and walk, barely. I was like, man, I can't deal with this shit right now. I was like, if I got to do it, and I had already gone through 5 days of this after I had quit methadone, like, the year before. I was like, I don't want to do this shit again. So they said, well, we'll give you Suboxone. And so I said, all right, fucking give me the Suboxone. So that's why I got on Suboxone. And they give me like 32 milligrams, I think, or something like that a day. I was like, yeah. I was like, whoa. Um, that was catatonic, you know? Yeah, I think it was too high of a dose. So now I'm like down to like, I don't know, 10 maybe a day. And it's a lot better, Yeah. So, and that was like, but I was on a high dose for like a year or something. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody. I mean, I still got problems from that, being on a high dose. I get like throat pain, stomach pain, digestive problems. Yeah, Suboxone's no fucking hayride either. It's not a pleasure cruise. All kinds of weird side effects that they're just starting to find out now. Like the pain is weird. It's get all these phantom pains. You get pain. I get throat pain, stomach pain, and then they scan my stomach, and they say, oh, there's nothing there. It's like, why does it hurt? You know, there's something weird to the cells. That's why I'm like, yeah, you probably don't know what it's doing to the cellular level, do you? Maybe we should find out. It's like, yeah. So that's it. Suboxone is a pretty scary drug too. It's like if you look it up, it's like way stronger than a lot of the drugs that it's supposed to be replacing. Yeah, like those people say, oh, like OxyContin. Well, Suboxone's right up there with like drugs like that. It might even be stronger than OxyContin. I know it's stronger than what you call it, than a lot of the standard stuff like the pills. Like like the regular pills, like they give you like Lortab and stuff. Nothing. They ain't even like an aspirin compared to like Suboxone. Yeah, it just doesn't get you high, but it's strong. It's like wicked strong as far as how it affects your body. Yeah, that's why like I don't think it's gonna last. I think 20 years from now, I don't think anybody will on Sparks. I'll probably wind up pulling it. You know, I think it's just a band-aid. Because, well, I mean, it's good. I mean, to get people off of dope, I mean, it has its own demons, I think. And I think that's why I think eventually they'll have to find something other. It's like methadone. Methadone is even worse than Suboxone. The methadone, I blew up to like 265 pounds. I think I weigh, what, 210 now? And I'm pretty good size. I'm 6 foot tall. I'm 210. You know, I'm muscular. Um, I was 265, and I wasn't muscular. I was just heavy, you know, bloated, you know, and tired. Didn't want to get up. Didn't want to move. I mean, started using a cane. I was like, you know, it was ridiculous. I mean, I didn't want to get off the couch. It was like crazy. And, you know, didn't help that I was drinking. I'll admit that, but you know, it probably made it worse. But there were other people who weren't drinking who were blowing up on methadone, and the fact that you got to go to the clinic to get it, it's ridiculous. It's a horrible drug. You know, I wouldn't recommend it to my worst enemy. You know, not at all. Methadone was a terrible drug. I was on methadone for too long, like a year and a half. Yeah, which is about how long I've been on Suboxone. No, I've been on Suboxone almost over 2 years. Yeah, 2 years. So I've been on methadone. I was on it for about a year and a half. So time to get off Suboxone. Yeah, I think so. I'm almost ready. I've been cutting my dose around, cutting it down, playing around, you know, trying to get it down. I've gotten as low as like, you know, one strip a day. You know, a little bit more sometimes, but you know, I'm trying to see how it affects my body because I'm other weird issues. So I don't want to bore people with my, you know, health problems, but you know, I'm saying as far as the drugs, you know, and how they affect you, you know, because it does. It's some seriously nasty side effects, and I'm not alone in this. There's people who say they wound up in the emergency room because of the pains they got from Suboxone, and it's so. But I still think I would take the Suboxone over the methadone. I would not recommend anybody, you know, unless they wanted to collect 500 to 1,000 a week in cab money. Yeah, that's yeah. People could always do that, you know. Look that one up in New York. Apparently, people have been doing that. Yeah, that's all. It's just, you know, and that's what, you know, was weird is I've never heard any news stories about that. Have you? But it was a big thing in New York with all these cab companies scamming the state for like thousands of dollars, and this went on through COVID. Yeah, because the cabs were running through COVID. You know, I was running down to Albany to get my methadone through COVID. Everybody else, nobody else was on the road. Cops would pull us over all the time. You know, I go, especially on a Saturday when there was nobody on the road. I go down and like cop be like, "What are you going down?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm cab methadone." Oh, okay, yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like, yeah. I mean, like, and the highway was deserted. I mean, like, literally, like the only people on the road were those methadone cabs. It's fucking New York, man. I'm telling you, it's every fucking scam you could think of. Yeah. And if you haven't figured out, I'm originally from New York City. Well, I don't know what to tell you. You know, um, but I'm originally from Brooklyn, old school Brooklyn. I'm originally from East New York, Brooklyn. And some people won't even believe that anymore. They say, I've met black people who say, "You're from East New York, get out of here." You know, it's like, because they're from East New York. But, you know, I was, you know, born in East New York in the 70s. So by the 80s and 90s, you know, the ethnicities had changed. So, you know, you know, my mother lived on Kosciuszko Street, and you know, before that she lived in Manhattan. My family actually, you know, lived in Manhattan since like 1840s or something like that. Like Germans, they came over in 1840s and lived in Five Points, you know, section of Manhattan, or Lower East Side. I don't know which you would call it, Five Points or Lower East, one or the other. And they were there from like the 1840s, maybe late 1830s, to about the 1940s. So about almost 100 years. I lived in Manhattan. I never lived in Manhattan. I was born in Brooklyn, so that's why my father, you know, was born in Brooklyn. You know, he was downtown Brooklyn. That's, you know, he used to go when I was a kid downtown Brooklyn. They were all Irish, you know. He used to, you know, the only time he'd ever drink, you know, it's like the Irish. It was a big thing in New York, the Irish. My father was in the like St. Patrick's Day parade. You know, he was like historian for the Ancient Order of Hibernians. It was a big deal. He used to take buses from New York City to go to Philadelphia to go to the grave of Commodore Barry, who was the father of the American Navy, who was Irish. Yeah, so, yeah. The Irish had the whole little subculture in New York City that I think a lot of it's forgotten now. You know, but maybe not all of it, but a lot of it. Then my father was like big into that. So I used to experience it as a kid. But my father was good for taking us everywhere when we were a kid, all over the city. So that's why I think that's why by the time I was an adult, I didn't want to live there anymore because I knew it so well. I was like, the hell out of New York City. It's for the birds. I like the country. My grandfather loved the country too. He bought a house. He lived. My grandfather was from Sicily, but he bought a house in the Catskills. To get away in the summer, and being up in the mountains in the Catskills way better than being in New York City. And still have that house up there, relatives. I mean, I actually still technically still own it, along with my relatives, whether they like it or not. My siblings. And I haven't been there in about 5 or 6 years. But nice place. It was originally 200 acres in a farmhouse on a mountain with its own water and all that. And then they sold off the water rights. So the land belongs to the state, most of it, but the 5 acres in the house belong to us. So, but it's surrounded by, I don't know, like 100, like maybe 1,000 acres of state land or something. So, yeah, works. Can't beat that shit. It's still there. I can go there if I want. Nobody can say a goddamn thing. Just gotta go back up to New York. I don't know if I feel like it's too cold. Right now it is. It's 52 degrees where I am, and it's probably 22 degrees where I used to live in New York. And this is cold here. It's 52. It's like brr. It's like turn up the heat. Usually it's like at night here it's like 60 degrees. At night this time. I don't know. If you haven't read my profile, or you haven't guessed, I'm in Mississippi. Which is pretty nice actually. If you've never been to Mississippi. I've been here a couple of years and I like it a lot. The people, I'm warming up to them, but the rest of it is great. The geography, the weather, and all that. It's the bomb. Really is. But the people are very strange. They're very polite up front, but they're hard to get to know. They're very defensive, and very standoffish. So maybe they don't like Yankees though. And some people have said that to me, and there was the people that said it were not Southerners. Yeah, they were Yankees, and they said they usually don't seem to like Yankees too much. And this was one guy who said this was a guy who was down here for 27 years. I think there may be a lot of truth to that. They don't really care for Yankees all that much. So I don't know. I mean, I haven't had any problems though, so nobody bothers me. But who's gonna bother my big ugly mug? So. And it's cheap as hell down here. It's fucking. I live on a lake, in my own domicile, on my own piece of land, that rent for like peanuts, for a month, and it's like, it's trying to find that in New York. Yeah, right. Not a house on a lake. I don't care if it's a shack, at a pond, anywhere in the state of New York, you probably wouldn't be able to find it for less than $2,000 a month. Unless it's like out in the middle of nowhere. And I'm like 6 miles from, well, 7 miles from like downtown, of a major city in Mississippi. So how ridiculous is that? It's pretty good here, You can complain. Could do worse. So anyway, I think it's better. I think I've covered my symptoms of insulin resistance for the night. I'd like to thank you for watching or listening to me droll and roll on about nonsense. I'm getting tired. I don't even make any sense anymore. So I'm going to cut off. But thanks for participating.